I'm super excited to see that so many of you took time of their Sunday and be here on the Masterclass HippoLogic Clicker Training. I'm super excited to see you all here. Today is also the opening of the HippoLogic Clicker Training Academy, and I will tell you more about that in this presentation. So let's take this down. So in today's masterclass, what can you expect? I will share my proven positive reinforcement training system with you. Because when you have a system, it's so much easier to accomplish your goal behaviors. And I'm really excited to share that with you. I will talk about 3 common mistakes in clicker training and how to avoid them. These are the most common things that I see as a clicker coach. Then I will be addressing your struggles. When you registered for the class, there was a question like, what is your struggle? What do you like to, and what would you like to learn? So I will be addressing your struggles. That's also a little bit about how I work in the academy. And you will get a peek inside what we are doing in the academy, and you can join today. And if you join today, then you will get a huge discount on your membership. Let's get started. 10 things about me. Yeah, I was a horse crazy girl. I always was, yeah, they were my favorite animals since I was 4 years old. I saw like a big horse in the supermarket, and I asked my mom, can I go ride it? Can I ask if I can ride it? And the answer of the owner of the horse was no, this is a Great Dane, this is not a horse. So I was super disappointed. So I'm not from a horse family. So when I was 12, I found a free lease horse. They taught me a lot about the horses itself, themselves taught me a lot about their horse behavior. And I've always felt like I don't fit in because I'm not a horse person, because I didn't grow up with horses, because I started at 12 or 11. Well, when I became 40, I thought like, well, the majority of the time of my life I specialized in horses. So I studied wildlife management and zoos because I wanted to do something with animals. And in zoos, in my study animal management, animal welfare was a big issue, especially in zoos. Like we focused on how to give animal welfare, how to enhance their welfare so that they can display their natural behaviors. And it was so strange for me, because if you would put 10 elephants in a row, like we do with horses in stables, it would not be accepted by the public. But for horses, apparently things are different. So these are things that I always questioned, like how can I increase equine welfare for the horses I work with. After my study, horses are my favorite species. So I became a centered riding instructor in the Netherlands, where I'm from, where I grew up. And I also became centered riding instructor because the traditional way of riding didn't give me quite the results. With centered riding, it was totally different because it was purely focused on balancing the rider. And I discovered when you balance yourself as a rider, or when you are balancing other riders, a lot of the struggles that you normally have, like a horse that's not forward, just disappeared. And that's when I also started to do groundwork lessons and workshops, horse behavior, because the most of the struggles that riders have in the saddle wasn't not because they lacked knowledge, because they all knew how to ride a circle or trot or canter, but the struggle was a miscommunication between horse and rider. So I became an advocate for positive reinforcement training, because in positive reinforcement training, you will have to manipulate the environment more than the horse in order to create the behavior, to entice the horse to get that behavior that you want to have. And then you can reinforce it. And I found by the feedback that we get from our horses, we get so much more information than when we use negative reinforcement, because in negative reinforcement, it's basically top-down commands, and it's not really accepted when the horse says no or refuses, because then we just amp up the aversives in order to get the result we want. So there's way less space to hear the horse out. And when we do that, we create that relationship with the horse, and we learn so much more about them. So that's why I've always worked very hard to bring positive reinforcement training and clicker training for horses to a broader audience. In 2009, I got the opportunity to say yes to a wild horse. I said yes because it was on my bucket list ever since I was a little girl. I had no idea how to tame a horse. This is the horse, Kira. I decided to give her 1 year. If she wouldn't be tamed by then, I would either seek somebody who was more knowledgeable than me. This was in the Netherlands, or I would have to decide that this wouldn't be a life for a horse that would be overstressed and over threshold all the time and in flight mode. Turned out with positive reinforcement, I could halter her, touch her all over, lift her feet, lead her over the premises, not very far because she was really hurt bound. So we had a lot of other struggles around that hurt boundness and natural behavior that she had. And this is also, she really pushed me towards the path of positive reinforcement, but that's a story for another time. But because I had a wild horse to tame and I never had done that, I had no experience, I had no one in my environment that had that, because there are generally no wild horses in the Netherlands, but these horses were kept for grazing purposes in a nature reserve. So that's how I got her. So and with my science background, I decided to make notes of everything I did so I could track my training and see what worked and what didn't work for her. So this is how Kira helped me develop my HippoLogic training system, and I developed that so I could help others do the same and clicker train their horses. In 2012, my husband and I and our 1-year-old son immigrated to Canada, and I brought Kira, my wild horse, but she wasn't really good at trailer loading, so I did everything I could come up with to prepare her as best as I could for her quarantine in Belgium, and then going into a plane and then going into quarantine. And in the meanwhile, while my horse was shipped or flown out to Canada, I was still in the Netherlands. So suddenly I had something like, oh, my horse is in Canada now I have to immigrate, which is because that was a big decision. Then I started doing online coaching because I landed in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and there were not many people that I could find were interested or heard about clicker training in 2012. So I called up some old clients and I asked them, like, would you like to try out video coaching? Because I didn't know if that would work. And so I had my first client. I wrote a training plan for her, and we did some Zoom calls, and turned out it worked. So that's when I started to do online coaching. And I also started the Clicker Training Academy. In Canada, I started working in animal rescues because I couldn't really find a lot of horse owners. So I started with the SPCA, training horses and making them more adoptable, like basic skills, like making them easy to halter, and maybe solving some of their emotional trauma that they had. And what was most surprising to me is that when I worked 5 to 15 minutes a week with each animal, they all improved. And what was most amazing for me to see and to realize is that horses opened up to humans in general. They didn't only do what I wanted to do because I was their trainer. No, it was a huge ripple effect, and they became so much better with all other staff and volunteers. So that was one of the most amazing things that I realized what was the effect of using positive reinforcement. And I clicker trained horses, sheep, llamas and alpacas in the llama sanctuary. I worked with an unapproachable mule in the donkey refuge. I clicker trained my cats, rabbits, and soon I'm going to clicker train dogs, which is amazing because it's amazing that so many people have dogs, and I never really trained dogs except when I was 12 years old, but I don't count that as real training. So HippoLogic was featured in a lot of magazines. I'm proud of Horse Illustrated because that's from the US. I'm very proud of being featured multiple times in BIT. BIT is a very big Dutch magazine. I've been featured in HeyNet from the UK, Pet Connection Canada, and Saddle Up Canada. So I'm super proud of that. And last year I was a guest at the podcast Horses in the Morning, which is also from Horse Illustrated. So I'm super happy that more and more people learn about clicker training horses and it becomes more and more mainstream. So what do I do? What is HippoLogic's mission? Here are my values on the left side. And what I do is helping horse owners who value their horse's body and soul and struggle to make the transformation from traditional training to clicker training, so they don't fall back on using coercion in training and feel guilty about it, but bond with their horses instead. And how do I do that? Well, the HippoLogic Clicker Training Academy offers a safe, supportive environment in which members learn and develop their positive reinforcement training skills and establish a two-way communication with their horses built on trust and mutual understanding. That's what this is all about. It's super important to honor the horse. They have not really chosen to be with us. We have chosen to have them in our environment. And therefore, I think we have the responsibility to make it as good as possible for them. So that's why I establish and enhance equine welfare, have that as my number one value. So we are all doing this for the horse. If the horse doesn't like it, if it's not good for them, I don't want to do it. So because of Kira, I developed a training system because I needed to find a tool to help other people learn to clicker train their horses. I was fortunate to have two mentors in 1999. So that's when I started. Because of my mentors, they helped me kind of translate all the scientific terms into normal Dutch, because the whole Yahoo email list was in scientific English, which I wasn't very good at that point. So I needed to develop a way to translate all these scientific terms to layman's terms. So that's what I use in the academy mainly, because I don't want to be a scientific speaker. I want to help as much possible as people as possible. So my system is based on 6 key lessons for horses, which are foundational behaviors. Once your horse knows these 6 behaviors, and I will explain which ones they are, then you have the blocks to train any future complex behaviors. And that's what's so cool about it, because the horses understand that. They start to understand certain concepts like duration, and then they apply it to other behaviors too, which is really cool to see how smart they are if you treat them as horses and go take the natural behavior as a starting point. And then that's not all. I discovered that we as a trainers need to develop certain skills or need to use certain tools in order to become successful. So I called those the 6 keys to success for trainers. And I will explain what they are. And when you are listening, you will probably recognize that if you shared a struggle with me, where they fit into the system to solve your struggle. But at the end, I will address all the struggles. I wrote them down on my notes. And I will also, if there is more time, there's also some learning points, people that said, I want to learn this or that. And I really want to pick out a few of them to help you and give you some pointers where to start. So let's dive into it. What are the benefits of having a system? You always know your next step in training because it's super clear. It's also easy to recognize if and where you get stuck. For me, for instance, when I started clicker training, I had no idea how to teach a cue. I had no idea how to do that. And I didn't know how to build duration. So what happened was that I got stuck on duration and I got stuck on teaching cues. And when I was searching for a mentor, I didn't realize that that was my problem, but my mentor helped me see that. And then suddenly I realized that I had trained about 20 behaviors. And my horse was just going through the sequence. Do you want this, that, which caused, in hindsight, a lot of frustration. But at that time, I didn't really see that. Yeah, it was interesting to see that when I realized where I was stuck in the system, that I could easily solve that. So this is how you can become an autonomous clicker trainer when you have a system, because it really helps, because you can just find the check boxes and see what you cannot check. You get predictable training successes. It really motivates trainers because you always know that there's always a solution to every problem. That's my mantra, and it has been true up to now that you can train everything with positive reinforcement. And if you have a system, it really creates clarities for your horse, which prevents frustration in your horse. Helps prevent frustration in your horse. So let's talk a little bit about the 6 key lessons, for horses. Table manners. Table manners is teaching your horse safe behaviors about treats in training and food in general. I call it table manners because it's really learned behavior. We cannot expect that horses know this by nature. They are grazers, they're herbivores, food is everywhere. They usually don't really have to wait. And on top of that, many horses have learned that if they push your pocket, that you think, oh yeah, there's an apple. I forgot all about it. Here you go. But then the next time the horse pushes your pocket, you think, oh, you're rude, you're mugging me. So teaching the horse, not even if you have your hand in your treat pouch, not to follow your hand, which really helps safe behaviors. Then the second one is teaching your horse to be patient. This is just teaching your horse to line up shoulder to shoulder next to you. And the advanced part of key lesson patient is that you also train for relaxation. I like this key lesson to be a default behavior. So I put it on cue, but I also keep reinforcing it if the horse offers it spontaneously, because if the horse offers a behavior spontaneously, it's probably because he doesn't understand what it is that you want, so they fall back on a behavior that has been reinforced in the past, and you don't want them to fall back on mugging. So patience is a really good default behavior. I used to have the smile as default behavior, but I found that other people really reinforced that behavior so much, even when I didn't want other people to reinforce that behavior, because people started to laugh. They start, oh, she's so smart, and oh, she's so funny, while I was asking Kira to do something else. So that's when I changed to a more invisible for other people default behavior, but which is very clear for her and me. The third key lesson is targeting. Targeting is teaching the horse to touch an object with a specific body part. This is nose targeting, that's where we start, but you can teach your horse to target any body part, which will help you with complex behaviors. I taught a horse that was very halter shy, not head shy, interestingly enough, but he was traumatized by a natural horsemanship trainer, and then he was very traumatized by halters. So whenever the halter touched his ears, that was a big struggle. So nobody could halter him except for the owner, and it took her also about 10-15 minutes. Using targeting as a training tool to help the horse overcome his fear for halters. That's when you use this goal behavior as a training tool to teach other behaviors and to improve his welfare. Then mat training. Mat training is basically targeting for the feet. Mats are really, really useful in all kinds of other behaviors. If you want to teach your horse to move away from you, to send him away without chasing him away or using aversives, is simply you lay down a mat at a certain distance, and then you cue your horse to go over there. And your horse knows that he will be reinforced with an appetitive, something he wants, so therefore it's not as bad for him to leave you and your treats in your pocket, because he will know that the mat represents the same thing. So that creates a good feeling in his brain. So mat training, it can be used for so many other more complex behaviors. It's really one, together with targeting, a very, very powerful foundational behavior. Then head lowering. Head lowering can be very useful. It can be a safe behavior. It can help you see how excited your horse is. If your horse is super excited, he will just not lower his head. So that can then be a common indication to measure his excitement or arousal or fear. That's only one of the things. If you have like a tall horse and you teach head lowering, it helps you with teaching him to become a self-haltering horse. So he puts his head into the halter itself, because you're holding the halter and they put their head into it. It's also very useful if you have a cue for head lowering in movement training, because it helps them to use their body in a more efficient way than when they have their head up high and the back low. And then number 6 is backing. Backing is also really helps with safety, creating a more spacious bubble if you need to, but also if you're going through gates and fences, just to ask your horse to step back. So those are the 6 key lessons for horses. Let's talk about the 6 keys to success for trainers. These are the motivation things. So what I do is I try to always teach the principles of learning and motivation, I call it. So it's the learning quadrant, but it's also all training needs to be tailored to the natural behavior or of your goal animal. if it fits in the horse's natural behavior, it's easier to train than when you ask your horse to do something that is not in his natural repertoire. It's very hard to teach a horse to climb into a tree, but it's easy to teach that for a cat, because it's already in their natural behavior. So we always have to ask, is it hard for a horse to do this or not? Is it against his instincts or not? And then motivation, it's very personal. Kira was born in a nature reserve. She never seen apples and carrots, so I couldn't motivate her with apples or carrots. So instead of teaching rules, when people start, they always want to have rules, just to have like a guideline. How many times do I have to click, and do I have to feed carrots or apples? And then I say, no, there's no rule about how many times you have to click. It depends on your learner. Some learners are quick learners and you have to click once and then you can raise your criteria. Some horses need more repetition. And also, like motivation, apples work for some horses and they won't work for other horses, or they are too high of a value and your horse gets frustrated and only focused on the treat. So when we base our training on the principles of learning and motivation, we are always going back to what is appropriate for the learner. Then we want to have a training plan. And a training plan in the HippoLogic system is just start with a vision board. What are all the things that you want to do with your horse? And then based on that, you can extract a training plan and list all the behaviors that you want to train. And then each behavior can have its own shaping plan. And a shaping plan is always a living document. You start by just thinking, how can I divide this into smaller steps? And then you go to your horse, you test it out, and your horse will give you feedback. And then you probably have to adjust a little bit of your shaping plan, or you have to maybe change your whole setup, your environment. You get a lot of feedback for your shaping plan from your own horse. I have made a lot of shaping plans in the past 25 years, and I share them in the academy, and some are really extended. I have like a 25 pages trailer loading shaping plan, and some are less extended but straightforward, because leg lifting for cleaning and trimming is more straightforward. Behavior is not as complex as trailer loading, traveling, and unloading. Then what do we need in order to get consistency? Because that was something that more than one person put into the struggles at the registration. They struggles and they answered consistency. If you have accountability and the support of other people, or a coach or a mentor, that can really keep you on track with your consistency. But also having a shaping plan and a training plan will also help, because then you know exactly what to do, which helps with motivation. So accountability is really key in your consistency. I have trained animals in animal rescue organizations, and the consistency was that I was there every week, just weeks on end. And the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years. And some, of course, some animals were adopted out, but when I worked with sanctuaries where the animals stay and have a forever home, you still see a lot of progress just by the consistency. And I became consistent by having that accountability, because I told them I will be there every Tuesday, and at the SPCA I will be there every Monday. So that was one way of how I created accountability for myself. And also being in a group, knowing that every Sunday there will be coaching, you can show up, really helps with your accountability. Then another tool is tracking your training, and I do that with a training journal, which just takes only less than 2 minutes per training to fill in, because the easier the easier it is to use, and the more consistent people will use it. You can also track your training with video and photos, which can make it really, really fun. And then the sixth key lesson is emotions in training. Not only your own emotions, your own frustration, your own happiness, but also that of your horse is super important, because it influences the training results. And a lot of us deal with frustration in ourselves or in our horses. And if you know how to get your horse back to relaxation, you can get him back into learning mode. Because if they are over-aroused, over-frustrated, they are not really in an optimal state of learning. So how do these fit into a flowchart? Well, you start with a training plan, start with the end in mind. For Kira, it was like, okay, I wanted to ride her eventually. That was the biggest goal, and also do performances and turn her into a lesson horse, so I could teach riding lessons with her in the way that I wanted. So with a friend, this was a really fun part. We made it a contest of listing as much behaviors that were part of it, like riding. Okay, what do you need to know? Your horse needs to be get used to the saddle, to a bridle, and so on. Then you have to plan what to train first. So for Kira, when she was wild, I thought haltering her would be the first step. Turned out it wasn't. I got feedback because she saw the halter, but she saw me, and she tried to escape from me, and she tried to escape over the wall of her stall. So then I had to go back and decide, make another decision. What do I have to train first? Well, first I have to teach her to stand still or approach me, or that I could approach her. So then you make a shaping plan, and you divide that goal behavior of, for instance, haltering, and I put approaching the horse as step number 1 in it. And that the shaping plan is based on the principles of learning and motivation. I could have gone into her stable, lassoed her, put her on the ground, put the halter on, but that was not the way I wanted to do it. I really wanted to have a horse that wanted to cooperate, and a horse that was not fearful, because to me it's super important. Then you have to get feedback from the horse, which means you have to practice. And when I started with clicker training, and I started teaching Kira tricks, and I was so afraid to fail, so I usually didn't do anything. And even though next week my mentor would come and check in on me, like, do you need help? I was just paralyzed by fear that I couldn't do it. So that's what the accountability did for me. So I just started to train 2 days before she came to the barn, to just see where we were at. And that was the accountability that pushed me to start training. And that's also how I realized that you can teach behaviors incredibly fast using positive reinforcement. And then you have to evaluate. I did that so much, especially with Kira, because she was wild horse, and I needed to know what went wrong, what went well, how can I get more of the results. And then you have to adjust your training. There's always something that you have to adjust based on the emotions, on the feedback that you get for your horse. Does your horse love it or hate it? So the heart represents the positive emotions, the feel-good emotions, and the little lightning bolt represents the not feel so good emotions, like frustration, anger, fear, that inhibit learning. So we always have to be aware. So once we know, we get the feedback from the horse, we have to adjust. Sometimes we have to make another plan, like with the haltering. First, I had to like approach her, but sometimes it's also something simple in the shaping plan. So these are the underlined words are the key lessons. So the training plan, the principles of learning and motivation, the shaping plan, emotions, accountability, and a training journal to track your training. Then let's talk about how to train a behavior, because when you train systematically, you have a vision in your head and it's easy to see what you need to focus on and what is going well. So for instance, teaching my horse table manners, that's the goal. Then you make a shaping plan, you go practice to get feedback of your horse, and then you ask yourself the question, do I get consistent behavior? In the beginning, the answer is probably no, not yet. It's the not yet that is very important, because then you either adjust your shaping plan or go back to your shaping plan, the next step, or you just practice some more, because it's repetition, repetition, repetition. And then one day the consistent behavior will be answered with yes. And then you can get to the next part in training. You can add a cue to behavior, which is not really applicable for table manners. So, but any other behavior that where a cue will give your horse clarity and that it increases safety. For instance, if you teach your horse to rear up, which is or lay down, those are behaviors that are very, very beneficial if they have a cue, just for safety reasons. Once your horse offers the behavior consistently, it's also time to change your reinforcement schedule. In the beginning, you have a high rate of reinforcement, learning goes very fast, but once your horse knows the behavior, you go from 100% click and treat to an intermittent schedule to strengthen that behavior. We also need to take into account that horses learn in a certain context. If you train a behavior in a certain specific place in that paddock, for instance, because that's where you start maybe with table manners, then you also want your horse to stop mugging you in the grooming place or in the arena, or when you are talking to other people and are distracted. That is always what happened to me. Then Kira just thought like, okay, I know how to get the attention from Sandra or from somebody else, which is a little bit mugging, or just mugging with throwing in a very nice, cute behavior like flamen, like the smile behavior. So we have to be very deliberate about training the same behavior into different environments and into different contexts, because that makes the behavior very, very strong. Duration. There was also a struggle about duration. So I have found that if you teach duration in the cue lesson behaviors, so in the key lesson behaviors like standing on a mat or touching a target or key lesson patience or head lowering, and you start there with the simple behaviors and building duration in like a foundational simple behavior, it's easier to teach it in a complex behavior, for instance, in movement under saddle or something, because I have found myself that horses learn specific concepts even. So the concept of duration, you can teach a horse that, and then when they don't get a click, they will figure out, let's do some more of what it has been reinforced, and then they will start to offer duration. So you can set them up for offering duration by how you set up your whole training system. So it's very, how you do that very much depends on what behavior you're training and also the reinforcement history of the horse. Then we want to fade out clicks and treats. So we want to get more behavior so we can put that behavior into a behavior sequence. For instance, if you taught your horse to self-halter, put his head into the halter, then take him to the grooming place, you don't want to click for putting your head into the halter after I close the halter clip. You get a click after we go out of the fence, out of the gate, you get a click and a treat, and then we get to the grooming place and I tie you there. No, you want to create that behavior sequence, like, okay, I come into your paddock, you come to me, you get a halter, we go to the grooming place, and there is one click and treat, or eventually, after you have faded out the clicks, maybe a treat, and maybe not, because you're going to an intermittent schedule. So this is how you create more behavior for less clicks, so you don't have to ride with 2 kilograms of horse food if you want to ride half an hour. And it's also very important to fade out your tools, the clicks, the markers, but also if you used a target stick or some other thing like a mat, and your treats, I like to fade them out, and then eventually you get the behavior under stimulus control. Is that when you cue the behavior, you get that behavior, nothing else, and you only get that behavior once you cue that behavior. So let's talk about 3 common mistakes. I call it pitfalls. We all have fallen into it, and if we haven't, we probably will, unless we are warned. So a lot of people are using a positive reinforcement approach in a negative reinforcement setup or environment, or we are using tools that are designed for negative reinforcement training. For instance, lunging then becomes a reverse round pen, which was in my eyes super smart solution, but for me it didn't really work. When Kira, this is a picture of Kira in 2016 when she was diagnosed with laminitis and equine metabolic syndrome. She was always overweight, and so the advice of the vet was to lunge her or round pen her. I did do that on day 1 and 2, and this is the horse that I got. From a very friendly, engaging horse, I got like a really frustrated horse. Her ears are pinned, her eyes are closed, and her nostrils have this wrinkle next to the nostril it's almost contempt. It's like, oh, she hated to be round penned. So what are some of the symptoms if we are in that situation, if we're using a positive reinforcement approach in a negative reinforcement designed arena? Like the round pen is designed for negative reinforcement because it has no corners, so the horse cannot change direction, because he will if you work in a picadero, which is a square, or you use a lunge line and a whip. So you make it almost impossible for the horse to change direction and have control over their own body. So it's really unfulfilling, and you feel unaccomplished, or you feel stuck, because it's very, very hard to get the goal behavior and you're not getting the results you want. Kira was just not offering trot. I had to really, it was just such a struggle. So then I fell back on what is natural to the horse? Straight lines. What is easy for an overweight horse? Straight lines. Straight lines are so much easier for a horse than circles. Running in a circle is really, really hard on the body. So when your horse is overweight, he already has a struggle with movement, and asking your horse to do a circle makes it more challenging. The other thing that I see when people work in a reverse round pen, and I just touched on that, they don't fade out their training tools. So what happens is that they become the cue for trotting, and that's when you see people running with a target stick, and the horse stops trotting when the trainer stops moving. So I wanted to avoid that, so I taught my horse just to go around a cone, and that's what I did. So there's 4 cones, so there's 4 bends, but there's lots of straight lines, which makes it easy for her, and that's really how I started doing the positive reinforcement movement course, because Kira was overweight and needed exercise, and I didn't know how to do that with positive reinforcement until she got laminitis and I was with my back against the wall, and I had to figure it out, and I did. So that's what I do now. Pitfall number 2 is not clear about your goals. And the symptoms are you don't know where to start because you don't really have a goal, so you cannot start with the end in mind. So sometimes one of the symptoms is that you're working on multiple behaviors simultaneously, and you have like the shiny training object syndrome, like I had, like, oh, people are teaching the horse to lay down, let's do that. And then, oh, I see people are teaching the horse to pick up an item, let's do that. So I didn't really have a goal, so I didn't know what I really wanted. So I was working on so many behaviors at the same time. It was not clear for my horse. There was a lot of frustration, not only in the horse, of course, but also in me. It felt like a struggle, and I never felt successful, because if you don't know where you want to go, you never know if you have arrived, if that makes sense. So solution is pick a goal, just like on a roadmap. Pick a goal, pick a destination for where you want to go, and then make a plan. There's something else what is a struggle, that was a struggle for me. I'll get to that. In this struggle is the struggle is trying to copy somebody else's chapter 22 while you and your horse are at chapter 7. So that is when we are trying to copy the results of somebody else. I tried to do this in dressage many years ago. I thought, okay, if the horse is on the bit, the only way was apparently pull on the reins, which then I had to work harder with my leg aids because the horse didn't want to go forward anymore. But I was trying to recreate this picture of a horse like that, which absolutely did not work because my horse and I didn't have the training that this horse has. So you have a lack of clarity, you get frustration, the horse opts out because the trainer is lumping, and lumping is when you make the steps too big. I was lumping when I expected Kira to be haltered right away, while she didn't even felt comfortable being near me. The horse is not offering behaviors or is not motivating. He's not offering behaviors because we're making the steps too big and we're skipping steps, and therefore we are not making progress in our training or towards our goal behaviors. We are making the same mistakes over and over and we get stuck. I put this picture in there because one of my dreams was to become a dressage rider. I wanted to do Olympic dressage. When I was little, we had a fabulous Dutch dressage rider, Annemarie Sanders-Keizer, and she rode her Amon so beautifully. She was in such harmony. I thought, oh, that's it. If you do Olympics, you get that harmony, which is not really true. And then on the way to riding competitions, I had to overcome so much things that were against my nature and against how I see horse training. We had to use a lot of aversives. You have to ride with double bits, and then you are also very dependent on somebody else, the jury, that gives you points and reinforces you for things you don't want to do. So it was very hip at that time to ride your horse behind the vertical. I don't think that's healthy for horses. So what I realized, and it's not really in this masterclass, but it's super important, is that when I realized that my values were not compatible with the goal I picked, that's where the struggle was and where the self-sabotage came in. So when I could split, like, okay, I still want to do higher dressage because I still do think it's beneficial for the horse to become strong and athletic. And how can I do that without being judged by somebody else who has different values? So when I realized that, because my mentor took me on a path to find my equestrian values, I realized that I still wanted to do that, and then I found an Andalusian show team, and we did performances in competitions, and we could pick and choose what was suitable for that horse, for the horse's age and learning process, and we could do it any way we wanted. And we could show harmony between horse and rider. So that was really, really amazing. And that's why becoming aware of your equestrian values is super, super important. So that's also the thing, what I realized with round penning and lunging, it's not natural, and I see the horse hates it. So why doing it? How can I find a solution that is really a win-win? A way to exercise my horse to get her back in shape, and a way for the horse that makes it easy and fun. So the solution is to listen to your horse. What does your horse want? I like this picture way better than the picture on the left, because there's less tag and less coercion. And I like this, but also maybe this with dressage competition is not really your goal or fits into your values. Maybe you would like to ride like this, just without a bit and without a saddle, and having fun with your horse. And I think this picture is so lovely because it really represents that harmony between horse and rider. So, but that's my personal opinion about that, because I'm looking at the horse. If the horse doesn't like it, it's never beautiful in my eyes. So before we dive into your struggles and what you want to learn, and I want to address some of them today, I would like to give you a little sneak peek into the Academy. The Academy opens today. In the Academy, we have weekly clicker coaching sessions in a group, just like we have here. It's always Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time. You get access to courses that also include a lot of training videos, shaping plans, and way of tracking your training. You will also get personal advice and tailored feedback on your training videos, maximum of one a week. And I like to do this because the struggle is not with the information and turning it into knowledge, but usually the biggest struggle is, and think about this if this is true for you, is the implementation. You've seen the video, it looked simple, you go to your horse, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, now what? You try to do it your way to make it work by copying, the end goal result behavior maybe, but then you create frustration in your horse, or frustration in yourself. So it's really the implementation that people need help with. And we have a private Facebook group to connect with other members. And it's a very small group. I will allow a maximum of 20 this year and then 20 next year. So the maximum group amount is only 40 people. So it's not for everybody. I will have to disappoint some people here, but the group size will be maximum 40 because that will be the maximum amount of videos that I would like to give feedback on. What else do you get? Weekly. Oh, yeah, I just had that. Why should you join? Well, if you want to develop a deep bond with your horse in training, it takes time. In the Academy, you build a solid foundation and you refine your training skills. Again, it's about the implementation, and that will take some time. And I think that and I've done it before in the academy, and then there's a member in there that's been a member for 4 years already. And to see her personal growth and her training skills, it's super motivating to see what she can do now. So yeah, it takes time to learn a skill, and that's why I want to offer a 1-year program. You get access to a positive reinforcement tribe with a positive vibe. So I help you find a positive, to create a positive reinforcement environment in which it's super easy to train behaviors in a positive reinforcement way. The unique academy offer is that you get the weekly live group coaching. It's not just a Q&A once a month, because I think if you have to wait 4 weeks to get help with implementing some knowledge or with resolving a struggle, your learning process will go very, very slow, because once a month is 12 touch points a year. Maybe one time you miss because you're on vacation or somebody's sick, and then you are left with 10 touch points of support. There's 52 weeks in a year. If you're sick or you go on vacation, there's still at least 40 hours left and 40 touch points left in order to get support, in order to get to develop your skills. So that's the reason I offer weekly group coaching. So instead of paying $100 each week, that is the value. It's hard to put a value price tag on that, because if you cannot get your horse into the trailer and you have to evacuate, like I had to do this summer because of the wildfires here, yeah, what's that worth to you if you can trailer load your horse or cannot in an emergency? So if you join today, you can save a lot of money because you will get a locked-in membership fee, which means you pay next year, if you want to stay for another year, the same amount that you pay today. It will never go up. You get weekly group coaching. You get tailored feedback on one training video per week from me. The year program also contains the Confident Clicker Trainer online course, which is a value of $897. You will get the positive reinforcement movement training at Liberty course, which is $597, and grass training for $197. So the total value that you get in this year, plus I will help you with your personal goals and make a personal training plan for you and your horse. I didn't include that in there. So this is about the value that you can get for 1 year. So the membership fee next year is $1,500 for a whole year. And then if you join today, I have 18 spots only, and that's for 18 people who decide to join today. Georgie, you have the link for if people want to join today, then you pay $797. And that will be for a whole year of coaching, weekly coaching sessions, plus one training video per week that you can send to me, that you get my personal feedback on. So still a lot of money, I realize that, but I also do believe that this is a unique, great offer for everybody who wants to develop their skills. So what's in the program? So January, February, March, we will focus on a personal training plan for you and your horse, so that you always know what your goals are. If you want to have like a reliable horse for trail rides or dressage, or whatever your goal is, we will work on that goal. We will also train the 6 key lessons for horses and make you skilled in the success keys for trainers in the Confident Clicker Training course. Then in April, May, and June, we will focus on grass training, because if you work at Liberty, horses will go graze because there will be grass in April, May, and June. If you want to trail ride, you don't want to have a grass diving horse. and I found grass driving training with positive reinforcement is super effective. And we will start movement training. Then in July and August, we will do some skills for horses, maybe husbandry skills like teach a horse to accept water, leaving the herd, or fly spray, that kind of things. And I will love to have your personal feedback, because that's what's so beautiful about working in a smaller group. We can focus on your own personal goals. September, the At Liberty movement training course will be there. It's all included for the membership. What you hear is the cat. She's playing with some rocks that she's putting against the window. And then in October, November, December, we will do some advanced Liberty training. We will work on the trot and the canter if that's desired, and we will build on some husbandry skills and fun clicker challenge that are just perfect for winter weather. So if you join today, it's $797 for a whole year. So let's address some of the struggles. I'm super excited about that. I've written them all down, and I just want to address them all. Somebody said my struggle is knowing where to start, where to begin. I hope by now that you have your answer, because I would strongly suggest by starting with the key lessons for horses, those 6 foundational behaviors, and that will also give you an idea and a foundation for everything else. So then you have to start with end in mind, make a vision board for your horse and put everything on there that you want to accomplish with your horse. Multiple people said consistency. Just the word consistency, or somebody said we are just beginners and having fun, but I would say consistency. Well, the consistency is, I think, will help if you have that accountability. If you have, maybe you have a lack of internal accountability that I had when I had to do movement training with positive reinforcement, because I didn't know how. But once I had that external accountability in the form of support of my husband, a sick horse, which was a really strong motivator to get her back to health, then I would say join a group, join a tribe, and make sure you have a program, because that will really help you with the consistency. Somebody said my struggle is ground conditions and wet weather. So these are external, these are something in your external environment that holds you back from working on your goals. I think that if we are super clear about what our goal is, there's always things that we can do in the foundation of our horse that we don't need to train in an arena, that we can train even in a stall, like key lesson patience, key lesson mat training, key lesson head lowering. And there's so many behaviors that we can train even though it's very wet conditions. I used to live in Vancouver with my horse, where the mud was just 80 centimeters deep. I still found ways to do despooking training or something else, everything that could contribute to my goals of making her into a riding horse. I work with donkeys at a local animal sanctuary. Since they aren't my animals, I don't get a lot of time with them. So I love that as a struggle, because it's the consistency and having a clear plan. And you will notice that if you do the same thing, even if you have 5 minutes a week with a donkey, and donkeys are so super smart. They are so smart. you will get progress. And if you track your training, you know next week if you come back, or if you come back like only a few times a week, you know exactly what you were working on, what the results were with this donkey and with that donkey. So you can really tailor that training better to them. Targeting is a fun foundation thing. And they don't forget it when you teach that with positive reinforcement. And I have found that all their other skills, it had such a good ripple effect on their mental state if you do it well. Somebody said my struggle is how to break things into small enough pieces. Well, that's what I really teach in the academy, how to make shaping plans. And even if we have split it down into enough small steps, the horse can still say, nope, don't get it. Nope, don't get it. I have 2 minis now, and one has really a fixed mindset almost. He doesn't really want to learn. It's super hard. So I have to break it down into super small pieces and do a lot of repetitions, but not too many repetitions, because then he's saying, no, you want this. No, this is what you want. And I don't evolve my behavior. The other mini is completely different mindset. He's more like an open mindset, flexible learning. He's always asking, do you want this? Do you want that? He comes with new behaviors, new ideas, new approaches. So for him, it's way more challenging to teach him doing the same thing, but longer duration. So how to break things into small enough pieces is making a shaping plan, and it really helps talking with somebody else about it. Next one, holding rope, clicker, treat all together without making a mess of it. Well, make it easy. How can you make it easy? Using something that we call protective contact. Is then you put your horse behind the barrier and you start training the basics. And if you're doing that, then you don't have to hold a rope in your hand, which just gives you more freedom. Then I like to have a clicker with a wristband, so that if I let go of my clicker, I can still grab it very quickly. So you don't have to have it all in your hands at the same time, because also when you're having a lead rope in your hand, your mind is probably focused on what your horse is doing, more in the sense of preventing him from walking away maybe. And when you don't have that, you don't have to worry about that. Makes it lots and lots easier. That would be my suggestion. And there's always a space that you can find to do that, even though in some spaces you're not even allowed to do at liberty work. Next one, she said she gets frustrated and nips at me. It's super, I want to applaud you for recognizing that it's probably frustration. So make it less frustrating for your horse by offering more clarity. Sometimes you can offer more clarity by making the steps a little bit smaller, or maybe you are using too high value reinforcers and your horse is only focused on that, or your horse just hasn't learned table manners. So there's different reasons, and I always like to figure out what is the most likely cause of that nipping behavior, because it can also be that your horse is trying to communicate something to you. Maybe there's a toothache and she wants you to recognize that. So figuring out why she's doing it, is it really frustration or is it something else? And then you can addressing it depending on what causes this behavior, because sometimes it's just simply learned behavior. We have reinforced it. So then we have to figure out how can we reinforce incompatible behavior and reinforce that more, so it will be easier choice to go to that other behavior for your horse. Next one, keeping my horse interested. He doesn't stay motivated by food for long. that can be a real struggle. It can be that your reinforcer is not high enough, so and the value of the reinforcers can also fade out. Like if you like chocolate cake and I give you chocolate cake because you did something really, really well, and you think, oh, nice chocolate cake. I worked in a bakery, so I know, I speak from experience. But after the second, third, fourth chocolate cake, it's not that appealing anymore. The other thing that can be that your horse is not interested is he opts out. He's not in learning mode anymore, or you're lumping and you're making the steps too big, so he cannot follow you. Like, what is it that you want? And he opts out. Next one. Threat if the threat if aggression during training. Okay, it's hard to read my own handwriting. If the animal threatens you with aggression during training, then I would suggest check all the boxes. Are you lumping? How high is the value of your reinforcer? What else is going on? Is the horse or the animal, I know it's a donkey, wants to control something else in the environment, maybe another animal, and it's redirected aggression, or is it aggression that is directed to you? So there's a lot of things that I would go play a little bit of detective, but we are working on it. So and I know you're making progress, so I'm super excited about that. Somebody says frustration, especially with movement. Like what I said in one of the pitfalls is that we are using, probably we want to copy somebody else's chapter 23 when we are at chapter 9. And then that, which simply means that we are making the steps too big, and you do get frustration. In the at Liberty movement training course is I really start small with a really high rate of reinforcement, and then I ask more and I reward less. And it sounds horrible, but I do it in a way that the horse stays engaged and that he offers behavior voluntarily without going into an extinction burst. Next one, my horse is a dog, LOL. And the struggle was stop him from barking and challenging other dogs on our walk. I'm not a dog trainer. I am getting better and better at training dogs, and so I would really set up a training a training plan, instead of going out there to the real world where the struggle is real and the problem is real. Practice in smaller environments, more where you have more power over the situation, that you can manipulate the environment to help you teach your dog not to bark and challenge other dogs. Next struggle, she anticipates my requests, which means that you probably don't have taught a cue, because once you are teaching a cue, you will also be teaching your horse whenever you're doing the behavior unasked, there won't be a reward. So if she anticipates you didn't give enough clarity, if she anticipates your request, it's a good sign. Your horse is engaged. Your horse wants what you have to offer. So it's a really good struggle to have, because you're on your way. It's really good. Next one, deciding what and how to take the next step. I think I covered that with a shaping plan and starting with the end in mind. If you make a shaping plan, you just check off, yeah, my horse has done this, he masters this particular behavior, and then you can check it off and raise your criteria. Next one, knowing where to start / where to begin. I would suggest key lessons for horses, and then build your way up there to what it is that you want to accomplish. Consistency. Oh, I already had that one. Next one, spacing out the treats without causing frustration and excessive offering of behavior to get the treat. So this is linked to the other struggle of that other person. When you train a behavior, you phase out the treats and your training tools, but you don't do that all at once. So you're in building duration, you're already fading out treat. Causing frustration, you can probably solve that with offering more clarity in all the things that I talked about that in the past hour. Yeah, and an excessive offering of behavior, it's basically mugging. So your horse just doesn't know when he can expect a treat and when he can't. So things as like an end of session training signal is really helpful to give your horse more clarity and teach him a cue. Increasing the criteria during training in a way that is engaging but not frustrating. So that depends on your horse. So depends on where your horse goes from engaged to frustrate, and when he gets out of learning mode. So that's something really specific and really personal, but it all has to do with a shaping plan, making the steps small enough. Next one, I don't feel like I'm getting very far. Well, my question would be, do you have a plan? What would be your end goal behavior? What do you like to do with your horse? In other words, what's your training plan? What's your vision board? Getting started. Next struggle. Again, start with foundation behaviors so that you can use those foundational behaviors as a training tool to train more complex behaviors. The other struggle, next, wondering if I'm doing it right, my horse isn't really food motivated. Then you have to change your approach indeed. If your horse is not food motivated, I believe that every living being is food motivated in some way, shape or form, because we need to have food for our survival. So you could change it with trying different kinds of food, see if there's something that is more interesting. Sometimes novelty really helps. So sometimes you give this treat and then that treat and then another treat. So mixing that up, that will can pique interest in your horse. You can also experiment with non-food reinforcers. As long as they want to work for it, it's really, it doesn't matter if it's food or non-food, but food is usually the easiest to carry out, most practical. Other struggles, duration. I talked about duration already. Planning is a struggle. Well, I would suggest go find somebody to make a vision board for your horse and then plan it out, divide it into smaller steps, and then just plan it out over the year. Somebody said, making training plans, knowing where to start. I think you have your answer by now. Make a vision board, make shaping plans, start with the key lessons for horses. And the last struggle of all the people who registered, this is struggle 28, understanding how clicker training, understanding how clicker train without causing confusion in my horse. Well, usually it's having a clear plan. What is the behavior you really want to train? Sometimes the answer is just clicking for multiple good answers, just not waiting until the horse does that one answer that you want, but just thinking before you start training, what else is something good? If my horse doesn't touch the target, what else? Oh, he's head lowering. Well, that's something that I also want to train. So I also click for head lowering and for touching the target. So in that way, if you are clear about what you want to train, that really helps in preventing confusion in your horse. Being clear about what it is that you want, and they will get clarity too. Clarity and consistency are my favorite words, and you will hear me say that a lot. So I also had like written down all the points that everybody wants to learn to see if I could, I wanted to address those, but we are, I had planned 1.5 hours, and I do want to have some live Q&A. There's one one that I want to address. Where is it? How to maximize the time I have with the donkeys in training, because the donkeys are in an animal sanctuary. It's really making a plan for each and every animal you work with. Things like simple things like, of course, table manners, that's always the start, but things like targeting really is such a tool, because with targeting you can teach them leading, you can teach them to go into a stall, into another pasture, all those things, and just tracking what you're doing with each individual animal, so that the next time you come, you really start where you left off training. And then somebody said, I want to learn to give my horse more autonomy slash a voice in training. And I love that. And that's why I like to work at Liberty with horses as much as possible, especially in the beginning, because it's very clear if your horse walks away, there's something going on in his mind. And then we have to ask, is he moving away from you because it's an avoidance motivation? Is it an aversive, or is it an appetitive motivation? Is it going towards? Is he moving away from you because, ooh, grass, and that's so much more motivational in that moment than you offer? Or is it, oh, my brain is full, I've learned so much, I cannot take in anymore? Or he's just bored with it or frustrated. So listening to your horse, paying attention to his facial expressions. There's a lot of information right now available about the equine facial expressions, that gives you a lot of information about if your horse loves it or not loves it. And every time he says no is an opportunity for you to listen to your horse. And that if you do that consistently as much as possible, you will notice that your bond becomes really, really, really strong. I'm going to stop share. And I love to see all your faces. I didn't see them. I'm super excited to see so many people here. If there are questions, yeah, let me know. I'm going to take a quick peek in the chat. If there's a specific question, hi. Somebody, where your horses is your home. Yes, absolutely agree. I'm very bad with shiny trainer syndrome. Oh, me too. I always think like, oh, that's something that I want to treat too. But having like a vision board for my horse, it's so easy now, because then I can think like, oh, this person does something really, really cool. Does that fit my vision with my horse? No, it's still cool, but first I'm going to do this, which I already decided that I'm enthusiastic about that. And then if there's time and I still like that, I will do that. I really like a personal training plan. Join the academy. Thank you, Georgie, for putting the direct link in there. I want to join. Welcome, Dawn, please. Yeah. Patricia says, I think I'm a founding member. You are absolutely, you were the first that started. The academy looked so different. It was only 4 accountability emails where we started in 2017. We have come so far, and it changed so much. So that's also something that will happen. I will always change the academy according to the need of the members. And so yeah, it can be the case that you're paying for this, but next year I will add something more and better. And if you join now, your year price will never go up. I love the idea of a vision board. Oh, it's so much fun, especially if you do that with somebody else. I'm bad at consistency. Find your tribe. How do you balance essential things like hoof lifting, worming, training with things the horse really enjoys? That's a good question, Alicia. Are you here still? Hi, Alicia. Um, First of all, I try to make it fun for the horse. Um, so yeah, deworming horses. I have found horses value choice in training and control over their body. Um, and how I balance it, I do fun things and then I do these things that might include aversive, like a dewormer. I trained an unapproachable mule. I couldn't approach her, but that she lived in the donkey refuge, and then once a year or whatever, no, it's not once a year. Anyway, it was time to deworm everybody, and she had never been dewormed because nobody can approach her. They've tried to sedate her, nothing worked, even darts didn't work at all. So what I did was I had food puzzles, and then I had like two bowls, one with little balls with like they made little food balls without dewormer and with wormer. First we put it on the inside, but I don't like to trick animals because it really damages the relationship and the trust they have in you. So then I put the dewormer on the outside, and I thought, let's try it out. I don't know what happened, but I did reinforce her for going to the food bowls with dewormer on the outside, and eventually she just ate those and she could choose. She had so many foods to choose and she still chose the dewormer. And I think part of it is because she also felt my emotion because I was so enthusiastic every time she went to the dewormer. So that was yeah, make it fun. Don't do all the necessary and not so nice stuff at once, but alternate. So if you have to train deworming or you have to do hoof lifting and your horse is afraid of it or struggles with it for one reason or another, start with something fun, do a little bit of hoof lifting, end the session with something you know your horse loves. And in that way, you can still build on. But yeah, it takes time. As long as you have time, um, you can do it with positive reinforcement. So yeah, make it fun for the horse, and it really helps to discuss these things with other people because everybody has different views and comes up with different solutions based on their own strategies and experiences. Sadie says, I'm interested in joining the academy, but I'm worried about the money aspect as I do have to rely on parents. Well, you have to be an adult, first of all, to join. If you are not legally an adult, please email me, hippologic@gmail.com. Maybe Georgie would like to put that on the chat or give you my email and we can talk about it. We can just talk about it. It's just all about tailor it to the situation. What's the link to join? The link to join. And so those were the things in the chat. Now I'm going to stop the recording for everybody who is watching the recording. I think after 1.5 hours you are maybe done with the recording. I will stop the recording and then I will do the live Q&A for the people who are live here.